Hi, my name is Javan. I'm 23 years old, from London, and I'm a journalist.
I'm Jordan, I'm 28 and I'm from Camden.
Hey, I'm Hassan, I'm 29 years old, I'm a freelance copywriter from London.
Hi, I'm Alex, I'm 23 and I'm from London and I'm in my final year of my university degree.
Hi, I'm Jordan, I'm 21, I live in Croydon and I'm a freelance actor and dancer.
Hi, I'm James, I'm 21, from South East London and I'm a quantity surveyor.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Own Your Future project by H&M and the Book of Man. This is a series about helping people with life and career in a post-lockdown world. My name's Ben James and I'm the mentor for today's chat, where we're going to be talking about looking good and growing confidence. In a piece of research carried out for this project, 56% of men all agreed that clothes had the power to improve their confidence. But as we all know, confidence comes from within. The lads here today prepared some questions for me, so we're going to kick things off by going to James. James?
I saw, obviously, in the past you used to play rugby, fan myself. Right. I was wondering what effects that or sport has on your confidence and mental health in general.
Really good question, mate. I attribute a lot of my better qualities to sport. If I'm honest, I attribute a lot of certainly when it comes to adaptation. So one of the key things sport taught me growing up was the ability to adapt. So even though you have set plays, you have strategies, you have an idea of what you think is going to happen in the game, you know damn well any incident is going to change like that. And the truly successful team is the one that adapts, that rips up the set play immediately or knows where their strengths are. So one of the key factors definitely was adaptation was a key thing. The camaraderie and teamwork that comes with specifically with team sports was a hugely helpful thing, especially when it came to work, because once you get into the workplace, a bit like a team, you don't get to pick who's on your side, right? So you're going to end up with a lot of people that you've got different backgrounds to, different beliefs to, different ideologies to, but you make it work nonetheless because you all have to come together for one objective, which is to win. And that's very much how it is in the working space as well. You all have objectives. You're aligning with different teams, different people, but you're all just trying to get the ball over the line, essentially. So I'd say they're the two main things, was the ability to adapt and the ability to work in teams quite comfortably.
And thanks for that.
In a world where we're constantly bombarded with kind of shallow standards of what beauty is and what a man's body should be, what can we all do to ensure that we don't let it damage our self-esteem?
Again, a really, really good question, because I think we're all guilty of that sometimes, especially I think social media is obviously the burning example there that we're all using every day. And key advice would be to consume less, would actually be to unfollow anybody that makes you feel that kind of way. So these sort of influential fitness accounts, I would immediately unfollow. I'm sure there's some great ones in there, but I would be very, very selective about who was giving me information about my own body and who was actually telling me how I should be living my life, because ultimately that's your decision. Everybody's always going to have a better version of whatever you're after, because that's what social media is. That's unfortunately the way it works. So ideally, I'd say just consume less. And if you do find that you are looking for guidance, I would follow more athletes or more leaders or people who are actually in positions of power that can actually dictate change, or that are actually doing something of worth. Because at the end of the day, if you look at, let's say we keep using athletes as an example already in this conversation, but athletes' bodies, it doesn't really matter how they look. It's all about what results they get. So I would find that it's way more beneficial to follow an athlete who's actually more successful with his body rather than who just looks pretty, because that's way more valuable, way more valuable. So I would unfollow any account that makes you feel uncomfortable in your body or makes you feel guilty or makes you feel like you need to change. And I would only follow accounts where they were talking more about achieving goals and achieving missions. A bit like, it is not sport, but obviously Jason Fox, who's a large part of Book of Man, great example of the kind of guy I'd say to follow, because he's all about objective achieving and about mental fortitude and about overcoming things. His body is just built a way. It doesn't really matter how it's built, because it carries the purpose of what he's trying to do. So focus on objective rather than appearance is definitely the right way to go.
Brilliant. That's a really good bit of advice. Following goals instead of standards is good.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it's the best way to it. No worries at all.
You were mentioning in one of your previous interviews that the stigma around bigger people being fit. I just wanted to see what your opinion is. Is it true or is it not?
In most cases, I'd say yes. Because it always provides, the things with big people is that there always has to be some sort of context as their fitness. So it's like, if you just see a big guy running, everybody just assumes he's losing weight. We don't assume that it could actually just be an athlete who's doing some cardio, getting ready for his preseason. Like if we take powerlifters or we take power athletes or shot putters and stuff like that, big, heavy, strong frames. If we see one running, we're going to go, oh, he's trying to get fit. That guy is already an elite athlete, like elite, top level, top 1% of the planet athlete. But we're going, oh, he's trying to get fit. No. That guy could knock us all out in the park no matter what. Like, this dude's an elite athlete right here. So it's for me that there is a heavy stigma, yeah, because you almost have to justify your position when you're bigger. When you're thin or in shape or whatever, it's a given, you know. A guy's in shape, does abs, you go fitness. But a guy who's big, it's kind of like, well, what's he trying to achieve here? Is he just trying to lose weight? It might not be. He might just be moving his body because it feels good. Because it feels good to get a pump. It feels good to be moving. He might be moving for his discipline. So is there a stigma? Yes, there absolutely is a stigma. I would love to see it changed 100%. I myself have been stigmatized when I was much, much bigger. So I've been different body shapes my whole life. And when I was much, much bigger, I was arguably much fitter then than I am now. Like, I was capable of running marathons way more efficiently and rowing further than I ever could right now, because I was purpose built for it. It was an endurance athlete. Whereas right now I'm more of a strength athlete. I can't last anywhere near as long as I could then, but I look fitter. So it's interesting. But yeah, no, there definitely is a stigma.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries at all. Thanks very much for asking the question. So I'm going to move over to Jordan Edwards, please.
How's it going?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good.
Firstly, I just wanted to say, like, self-esteem when it comes to like male body image is something that's often overlooked. So yeah, just thank you for coming on and speaking to us about this topic. What is the best way, in your opinion, to kind of improve the way that you feel about yourself? Like, say, like you're looking in the mirror and you're just looking, and it's just you. Like, what is the best way to sort of change your mindset about yourself?
So it's honestly a very, very good question, because that's something I've battled with many times through different periods of my life, where the mirror was winning, where I would really let the mirror win. And there was a small period in my life where I actually just got rid of all mirrors, which is not a healthy thing to do either. Like, there has to be a balance with this thing. So it's an intricate question that's going to require quite a heavy answer. So without sounding like a broken record and repeating myself, it's one of these things where we have to value our bodies on something other than its appearance. The appearance really is not important, and it very much is something that hits you harder when you're younger. And I think in time with age and things, your sort of your value of body changes quite heavily in a very short period comparatively. Like, me at 22 versus me at 28 is vast. At 22, I was obsessed. I mean, really dialed in obsessed. Now I love my body. I love what I can do with it. I love the fact that it does things that I want it to do, and I don't beat it up for not having the things that I think it should have. Because do I actually think it should have? Like, not every guy should be absolutely jacked and shredded. Like, they shouldn't be. Like, I know plenty of guys, doctors, neurosurgeons, musicians, artists, and I don't even care how they look, because what they do far surpasses the way they look. So what I would really focus on with your body, if you really struggle to get over the way that it looks, give it something that you can value it otherwise into. So say your body, like, let's say if you are really fitness driven, get better at a movement of some sort. Maybe focus on being faster or stronger or more flexible, or being able to plank longer, or press up. A little small victory, a little win, because then you can thank your body for being able to do it. You're rewarding it by saying that's what we can now do. So it doesn't matter what we look like, but what we can now do is really important to me, because that allows me to do X, Y, and Z. And that, for me, is what worked for me, was valuing my body's ability in able to achieve something rather than the way it looks. And I actually started to really enjoy being a contradiction, being like, you know, a really heavy big guy but super fit and super fast, because everyone was like, well, like, it was it was no longer like, look at the big guy trying to do something. It was like, that boy can move. Like, not even for a big guy, that boy can move. And that was something that I really started to celebrate more. And it sort of ironically ended up changing the look of my body, but without that being the focus. So I would really just sort of try and value your body on something other than the way it looks. And that can be anything. And just really try and appreciate the small things it does. You know, it does little things. It allows you to shake hands with new people that might change your life. It allows you to hug family members. It allows you to play instruments if you're musical. It allows you to paint. It allows you to do so many things other than just the way it looks. And those abilities are worth far more than a set of abs or some chest or shoulders or whatever. Far more.
No, that's a really good point, man.
Yeah,
definitely. It's so easy to kind of forget those like basic things that you are able to do. Yeah. So just appreciate them a bit more. Nice one, man. Thank you.
That's it, man. No worries, man, at all. No worries at all. Yeah, thanks so much for your question.
How do you deal with feelings of jealousy or envy, particularly when it comes to appearance?
Especially in the industry I'm in, that's something that you can be very guilty of, because obviously we're all competing for the same job. So we are naturally going to compare, unfortunately, our bodies and our looks and that sort of stuff. And I think having gotten to the sort of the worst points of it in my career previously, it's allowed me to come out the other side and just sort of change. So it's a really good question. How do I deal with it? Honestly, there's a big part, and this is quite a tough answer if I'm going to answer, so please don't think I'm being like nasty here, but you've got to get over yourself a little bit. You've got to understand that not everybody's in competition. It's not all about your body. It's not. Sometimes things don't work the way, not with nothing to do with appearance. There's many other factors that dictate an outcome. So you have to really get over your own insecurities and understand that that person hasn't been through what you've been through. They've not had the same life you've had. None of us have had the same story. All of us have had radically different journeys in our life. So one of the key things is just to understand that you're not them and they're not you. So you can't compare. You can only compare yourself to yourself. You can only compare yourself to the guy you were yesterday and the guy that you want to be tomorrow. And the only thing, if you really want to progress in anything, is just to make sure that the guy tomorrow has the best head start that you can give him today, which is, preparing your food for the next day, or preparing your clothes, or researching, or practicing something. That will give the guy tomorrow, the guy today, a better chance, if that makes sense. So you will succeed far better. Just basically try not to, which is such a daft answer, I know, but don't be jealous. But if you really want to go into that sort of game, is you can only really truly compare yourself to yourself, because you're the only person who's been through what you've been through.
Makes total sense, man. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for that question. That was really great. So James,
I was just wondering if you've got any other sort of advice you can give to someone who isn't content with their body image. When for me personally, it might be sort of the opposite of maybe what you've gone through. I feel like I've always I wanted to be a bit bigger. When I was going through school, I always wanted to be taller. But obviously, as you just said then about acceptance, I sort of got to the point where I was like, well, I'm not going to grow anymore. It is what it is. It's still sort of a fault that I do have. But for me, it's about trying to put on a bit more size. So I don't know if it'd be different to how you've sort of faced any struggles or whatever. But yeah, if any other advice that you may give on that.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because I've been both sides of the scale. So I've had to get bigger, smaller, and that's not just body fat, that's muscle mass as well. Because one of the most complicated things about being this side is that I need to have a certain level of muscle mass to be sexy. For women to find it sexy, and for men to find it aspirational, because you do have to dance on the line, but then also to carry enough body fat to fit the briefs. So it's a weird place to be, because on 1 minute you're trying to lean down, but you're also trying to bulk. It's confusing. But with your question, so sorry, just to go back to it, you're saying that you struggled with height, accepting sort of the height element, and then you're struggling with the idea of. So one thing I would ask, not to sort of I'm conscious on time and stuff, but why do you feel you need to be bigger?
I don't really know where that comes from, but it's just something it's just something I've always thought that maybe some of it has come from my sports side, that I think obviously physicality, that would help. But yeah, it's just something I've always been conscious of. I've always had a very slim build. Right. And then, somewhere I've just thought that I want to, or maybe need to.
The key thing, so what was for me was determining what the motivation was. Why did I actually want these things? Why do I actually want them, or do I just think I should be doing it because that would make me tougher on the field, that would make me better and more attractive to women or whatever, which by the way it doesn't. Women really don't care for that sort of stuff. They genuinely don't. So it's the key thing I'd say first is just understand the actual why. Why am I thinking these things? Why am I constantly trying to make this happen? And then work out, is this actually what I want? Genuinely. Because that doesn't mean to say you just quit, right? It doesn't mean to say you just sack the gym off and stop, call it a day. It just means, if that means that you're going to relieve some of that pressure, and you're not going to be counting every macro, and you're not going to be drilling every single periodized program to death, and you're going to be doing it, if that means you can have a better quality of life, it's well worth it. The key thing is a healthy fit frame and a healthy fit body, but with really good quality of life, because you've got to live, man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate
it. So Hassan, I want to jump over to your second question, mate.
For the fluffier guys who find it difficult to find confidence in their bodies and just in themselves overall, what kind of small steps can they take towards accepting themselves, so that there's a kind of gradual progression? So I online have this thing I call myself fit and fluffy. Sometimes I play around with it, where I'll just do like workout classes, and I'm fit and fluffy. But anyway, that's separate. But what helps? So what actually helped me was being more vulnerable. So I used to always hide behind a lot of layers with my clothing. So my style is very layered. I'll always wear a t-shirt, overshirt, hoodie, whatever.
And then what I started to do was actually removing a lot of those layers, which was quite an uncomfortable period because it would make me feel a bit more vulnerable. But then what would happen is I'd be doing it, and then kind of maybe I'd get a nice compliment here and there, or maybe I'd catch myself in the mirror of a car or reflection of a car, little tiny win. And that little win would be like, actually, this isn't so bad. Like, well, I've been beating myself up for this. It really isn't that bad. So then that would really help. And then that kind of like that overshirt shirt combo just became a t-shirt. And it was like so much more freeing. I know it's such a simple thing, but it's so much more freeing to be like, I can now, like, I don't have to think so much. I can just get it up, throw a t-shirt on and go. And that was like a really freeing thing. And with that free space in my mind, I was able to think of new things. I wasn't thinking about being self-conscious anymore. I had extra brain capacity to think of new stuff. So what I would say to start with is really sort of push yourself out your comfort zone a little bit, just a tiny incremental bit, whether it's just removing a layer or whether it's, you know, whatever would be a similar thing to you. And that really adds up over time. And then also, you know, really sort of try and be brave when it comes to the summer months where, you know, you're shirtless on the beach or whatever, which used to be my absolute nightmare. But really sort of try and be a bit brave and really just think, okay, I'm going to make a deal with myself. I'm going to take my t-shirt off and I'm just going to walk to the sea. And I'm going to walk back out, and then I can put the t-shirt back on, but that's all I'm going to do. And you just set yourself these small little wins, and then when you win them, you're like, oh, I wasn't so bad actually. And then before you know it, you feel more confident and more present. And another thing, the last thing, is in clothing is just try your best to find the right fit of clothing, because I can't tell how much that makes a difference. Quite often I would be really blaming my body for not looking a certain way, but it turns out I just wasn't shopping right for my body. I needed longer length clothing, longer length jeans, which I didn't think of. And then as soon as I found it, fit great, and I looked I felt like I looked 20 times better. So just little things like that. But again, you know, always reach out afterwards and we can sort of talk more on that sort of stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hassan. Thank you.
Do you think that there's a like adequate representation of like plus size models in the industry currently?
In the fashion industry, it's getting better, but it's certainly nowhere near where I believe it could be and should be. It's certainly got better. It's just that the issue is that in the UK, in the fashion market, there's actually not that many brands who even do it. Right now, it's not going to become mainstream right now just because there's not enough brands doing it. But it's a bit like chicken or the egg. Brands will do it when the demand's there, and then the models exist when the brands do it. It's like we need one of the things to happen. So it's like if the bigger guys want it, if we want it, we've got to start shouting about it. We've got to make it a known factor. We've got to make videos online about it, demanding it, just stuff like TikTok and stuff, which are platforms where things go viral. If we make stuff just saying it, people will share it. Brands notice that and they go, oh, there's a market here that we need to tap into, because that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to capitalize on markets. We have to actually create that market in order to create the actual representation. That's ultimately what it is. Other than that, outside of fashion, I do believe movies and music and art could be doing a damn sight better job. I don't see why the big guy in a movie has to be the funny fat friend. I just don't see why it has to be. Like, why does it? No disrespect to Kevin James, but I just don't want to see him no more. Like, I want to see someone cooler. Like, cast Jonah Hill instead. Like, people like that, and especially on that mainstream element is where we're talking on the bigger frame, you know, a more diverse race on that as well, because it's not just bigger guys, but we need more dark-skinned guys. We need everything to be different. Everything needs to be represented. More Asian variations. Every variation that the body comes in should be represented in a different way at different times. It shouldn't always just be the comic relief, because it's like, oh, let's see the fat guy try and get the chick, and it's like, how about we just see like a better story where the big guy's body's not actually mentioned, but we can see he's a big guy, but he's actually killing it at doing something really successful instead. That would be way more impactful than just having like Kevin James, Paul Blart, Mark Cop, or whatever it was, Mall Cop, whatever it was from back in the day. So yeah, that's what I think. I think it could be a damn sight better. It's got better, but there's a long way to go, basically.
Thank you. That's deep. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
I was just wondering, because I feel like stature-wise, me and you are probably quite similar. So I'm like 6'5", and I always feel like walking down the street is such a self-conscious thing, because it's like, so I live in Camden, so walking through Camden Lock, it's like I'm just towering above everyone all the time. Do you feel like those kinds of experiences shaped you in a positive way or a negative way?
Yeah, well, that's a question I could probably talk forever on, but in my younger years, extremely negative, if I'm honest. If I'm really honest, very, very negatively, because I hated standing out. I hated always being stared at. You know, I never felt like I really fit in anywhere, quite physically and figuratively. You know, I never really felt comfortable. And then the attention I changed my perception of the attention. So when I thought people were staring at me because I thought I was a freak, I actually was like, maybe what if they are admiring me? What if they are just curious? And I started to look at inanimate objects and compare them. So a bit like, do you know if you ever, so this is a really weird analogy, but my high school used to be on a dual carriageway. Right? It was like on a motorway next to it. Great school, just sounds terrible the way I describe it, but really good school. And every day you'd see tons and tons of traffic going by at 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour every day, right? Mm-hmm. You'd ignore it 9 times out of 10 until all of a sudden a lorry came through, because it's literally like 10 times the size. And it wasn't because you didn't like the lorry. It's not because the lorry's a freak. It's not because the lorry was a weirdo. It's just because it's bigger. And you just notice things that are bigger. It is what it is. It's a natural reaction. If you see, 3 jets in a line and a jumbo jet go by, you can look at it. That's a big old jet. Like it's not actually a negative thing whatsoever. It's just a human reaction. And then I thought, well, what if that's what's happening to me? What if people aren't glaring at me and they're not thinking nasty thoughts, and maybe they're just looking, because that's what we do as people. We just look. And sure enough, in time, that was what I learned, which that was the case, that they weren't staring at me or checking me out or looking me up and down. Sure, they'd ask questions, how tall are you or whatever, but I realized that's actually a super benefit. We get to have a conversation with like way more people for no damn reason. And with that means we can meet some incredible people. We can meet some amazing people for no reason other than the fact that we're tall, which we would then in our youth might say, I really hate being tall. I just wish I'd blend in. But then when you blend in, it's like you would miss the attention. I promise. It really is. Yeah. As your confidence grows with it, you'll be like, actually, yeah, this is kind of cool. This is actually really cool. Like it is, honestly, it really is. It's a positive thing. I promise you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries at all. No worries.
So obviously the way we dress is kind of a large part of our personality. But I was going to ask, have you ever been kind of overly consumed in kind of lost yourself in the way that you've tried to dress? You've kind of been so adamant to be one way that you've actually kind of forgotten about who you are, and you've just kind of got to a point where you're not wearing clothes are wearing you?
Again, great question. I think one thing, I'd say yes and no. So yes, there's been times that I'll slow down a bit. There's been times where I've certainly changed my style. I've certainly tinkered around with things. I've copied certain people, certain influences where I've gone, yeah, actually really like that vibe. I'm going to go with that vibe for a little bit. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. Because if you think from a model's point of view, there are 1,001 different images of me online looking 1,001 different ways, depending on how that brand's dressed me, whether they wanted to cut my hair, shave my beard, dress me in totally different clothing, opt for more jewelry, whatever. So in that exact moment, in that photo, I look like X type. But then in another moment, I'll look like, Z type. And I think the thing is that my style, I guess I could say I don't really have a specific style. I have things that I like to wear. I always like to match colors or whatever, but I will also adapt to situations and stuff as well. Like if I want to wear something a bit more grungy and a bit more like a lot of darker colors and a bit more whatever, and it matches the aesthetic where I'm going, I'll do that. If I want to be a bit more preppy or whatever, because I'm going to go meet my missus' parents, I'll do that. You adapt to the thing, because I think the key thing is that you are wearing the clothes and they are not wearing you. So it's up to you to decide what you want people to think and what you're showing. That's entirely up to you, and you can adapt that as and when and as many times as you want. And that's something that's very worth remembering, is that the clothes are great, but it's you that is worth far more than them. So you can wear whatever you want whenever you want.
I think it's just I've had a case before where I'm perfectly fine with it, but then I'd started a job where I could wear my own clothes, and it was when I started doing that I was kind of like, for some reason, something in my brain was like, started really getting kind of like, oh, I've got to make sure I look all right to go to work. And it was just kind of, because I was like, because I'm at work, so people are going to see me more often. Like the same people that could see me in the street were just going to see me at work, and I was just really worried that I was going to get extra judged. I don't know why. It was just because it was people were going to, same people in the same place, if that makes sense.
Honestly, it's totally normal to feel that way. You probably just felt more vulnerable because you were showing more of your real personality. You weren't hiding behind the work uniform anymore. You're like, oh, this is actually me. And you might just feel a bit more vulnerable. It's not, you won't be being judged more or anything. It's just for you, you obviously connect well with your clothing. You relate well to the way you look. So it's obviously important to you. So that's all it is. Like, it's just a lot of vulnerability, but I don't know. I think you'll be good. You'll be fine.
My question is, what's one piece of clothing that makes you feel the most confident? So I layer quite a lot because I feel very self-conscious about the way that I dress. I basically live in hoodies and sweatpants because they're just comfortable. But I am trying to change my wardrobe and just restructure the things that I own. So what's one piece of clothing that you're like, this is the one thing that makes me feel most confident? And how do you pick that piece?
That's a really, really good question. It's a bit like, what's my go-to piece? I guess men's fashion is quite interesting, really, because it can be very creative, but it's also very simple. We t-shirts, shirts, polo shirts, hoodies. It's quite limited what we can do. So for me, generally speaking, would be a variation of a shirt, a normal button down, whether I could go with like a denim style or a cord style or whatever. I would mix that up, but generally speaking, a shirt, just because it does give me that extra comfort of not feeling as though my body's too exposed, because I do have days still where I feel a little bit self-conscious. I think we all do. That's perfectly natural. But then I also feel like it's got the most, it can be the most diverse. I can dress up and down and vary and layer and do whatever I want with it. If it gets hot, roll the sleeves up, rock like a spring look or whatever, or I can layer up and throw like an overcoat on top, flat cap, whatever the vibe is, whatever I'm going for, I can. So I really would say just a really well-fitted shirt, but the fabric, style and design can change. But that would be my go-to sort of like confidence piece, I think.
I'll have a look at some shirts after this.
So as someone who's kind of done a couple of photo shoots for themselves, kind of not for anything professionally, I would kind of like to move into doing kind of working for a company, kind of doing professional modeling shoots. So what advice do you have for kind of getting into the industry?
So with modeling, there's the way you'll get told that you need to go about it, and then there's the truly professional way to go about it, and it's the one that'll give you the quickest answer. So what I would say, if you first of all, you got to take your measurements. So take your basic measurements: chest, shoulder, arm, body length, inside leg. If you just Google tailor measurements, for example, it will tell you everything. So just get all those, neck, the whole lot, write them in an email. And then take some basic, what they call digitals or Polaroids, which is just you against the plain wall. You can shoot them on an iPhone, doesn't have to be anything fancy, and you just do a crop from sort of just the top. Same again for the side, same again for the side, and same for the back. And then you do the same again on full length, so you get eight photos basically. And then you add those to the email, and then you record a quick 10 to 15-second video about who you are, what you're interested in, model. If you have any model experience, even if you don't, doesn't matter. Just a completely raw, basic video. No editing on the photos or anything. And then any professional shots you have as well. And then this is your intro email. Basically, that's just saying, hi, my name is X, and this is what I'm really passionate about getting into modeling. I think I've got a good look. And then if you want to be really smart, is find models that either you look like or you think that you are a good match to, like people that like you've got the same vibe as them. Go to their Instagram and go to their bio and send that package straight to their manager. So don't send it to the general like wash, go straight to the manager and just be like, hi, I've noticed you represent this guy. I think I've got a similar look. Here's who I am. What do you think? And that is your fastest way of getting an actual answer. Also, second to that, you don't have to be signed to be a model at all. And if you, especially in this digital age now, you actually have more power, more clout, and more value if you have a social media presence than you do if you're just a signed model. So if you've got a really good eye for fashion, a really keen eye for your look, or even if it's not a good eye for fashion, you just know who you are and how you look, express that as much as you can online. Really express that through your music, whatever it is, through TikTok, through Instagram. That will generate way bigger interest than just sort of the typical modeling element. So there's two options really, but the first one is the professional, straight down the route to get signed, and the second one is more to build like a personal brand that will open up other doors as well.
That's perfect, man. Thank you.
I recently saw that you got unwanted criticism online on your Instagram, which you responded to in quite a kind of dignified way. So what advice can you give to people to approach when they're in that scenario where they're given criticism that isn't constructive and is generally meant to put them down in a way that's going to be better for them instead of just lashing out?
So one key thing that I always have to tell myself is, because I'll be honest, I've been pretty lucky. I've had very little negative sort of backlash. But whenever I do, look, at the end of the day, this is such a corny phrase, but it's very true. Hurt people, if that makes sense. Yeah, that person being toxic and negative to me is probably because they're actually really probably going through something. And if I get over myself, what I'm actually reading is a person in pain who's just lashing out. And I go, well, you know, something ain't right with this guy. Maybe he's having a bad day. And I just delete it. If I'm honest, I just go, I'll let you forget about this. I'll forget about this, and we'll both move on. And I just move on, because I myself, as a person, you know, I know from the past I've only ever been like a bit of a twat if I'm going through something. Like, there's no other reason why I would be that way. So for me, it's like I have to understand that person who then on the other end of that message is likely a person in pain as well, and basically A, don't rise to it, and B, just delete it and move on. You know, for every one negative comment, there's going to be 20 great comments that you've got to focus on and go, well, why can I be upset about this one person who's just trying to hurt me when they're not even looking at the photo, they're just full of anger. This isn't about me at all. This is about them. So I'm gonna do them a favor. I'm gonna delete it and I'm just gonna move on with my day. And that's generally how I operate with it.
Nowadays we're kind of prone to wanting to answer back and kind of get our own back on someone, especially on like social media. It's very easy to see people kind of clap back on negative comments. But like you mentioned, kind of having that approach of not giving it the time of day and understanding that it comes from a place of pain is really important. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all, mate. Really appreciate you all taking the time out. And like I say to any of the boys, just feel free to reach out on any socials, and I'll happily chat with anything you need.